Okay, so we need to talk about why some fashion photographers really struggle to get bookings in 2025. And it's not because of a lack of talent, it's really because the shoots aren't being planned in the way that they should be. If you're watching this and you're like, I want more bookings, I want to get hired more, and you're like, I don't know why, it's probably because you're not planning the shoots in the way you should be. But I get it, you want to know how to do it, so we're going to talk you through the entire process. By the end of this video, you're going to know exactly how to plan a high-end fashion shoot from A to B in the way that I, a fashion photographer who has worked with some of the biggest brands and magazines in the world, plans her shoots. It's going to be the kind of work that goes from just a scribbled idea in your notebook to a fully fleshed out, high production, high value photo shoot that then gets reshared, that gets published in magazines, that gets you looked at and paid attention to by some of the biggest brands and advertising agencies in the whole world. So before we do that though, I want to go over why it's so important that you spend the time to plan a shoot in depth. So many photographers when they're starting out, and I used to do exactly the same thing, is just throw an idea together, grab someone and just do it with no real thought. Very run and gun style, very spontaneous, very last minute. And while those shoots have a time and place, they don't necessarily always get you where you want to go. They lack the intention, they lack the thought. And it's the intention and the thought that is what's going to get you the long-term success. When you know where you want to go, you need to be able to build a portfolio that's going to get you there. And you can't do that if you don't step back and take a minute to plan your shoot out. What I'm talking about today isn't necessarily how to plan a client shoot. A lot of this is applicable to that, but we're specifically talking today about planning shoots that are going to go in your portfolio. So this is the work that you are showing off to the world. It's the work that you are putting in front of your dream clients. It's the stuff you're pitching with. It's the stuff you're posting on social media. Because client work isn't necessarily always going to be your vision, your direction, your choice. So we're planning today intentional portfolio shoots that you are going to use to get you bookings. Planning really does help in so many ways, like ridiculous amounts. It's going to help you avoid creative block on set. I don't know about you, but there is the worst possible feeling, in my opinion, is holding your camera in your hand, having your model in front of you, and then thinking, I have no idea what to tell them to do. I don't know what I want. I don't know where I'm going with this. My mind has gone blank. That is the worst feeling, and that is what we are going to avoid by doing the planning. You're going to eliminate all those blank mind moments, those creative block moments when you're on set and you have that stressful feeling of, I don't know what to do. And then because you're stressed about it, it makes it so much worse and your mind goes even more blank. When I have those moments of stress, like they get worse and it spirals and then I can't get out of it. The planning eliminates all that. Planning a shoot like this is also going to help you really communicate to the team you're working with what it is you're trying to achieve and what you want to get out of the shoot and what you want them to do to bring that vision to life. If you do not plan, it's really difficult for a makeup artist, for a stylist, for a model, for a hairstylist to understand what you're trying to get them to do. As the photographer, you generally are in charge of the vision of the shoot, unless you're working with a creative director or an art director. Again, we're talking about your portfolio shoots. It's a shoot that you're doing to promote yourself. Therefore, you should be in charge and leading the show. And you need to tell people what you want. Otherwise, you're going to get results from them that you don't necessarily like, and it's not going to be their fault. It's going to be your fault for not telling them what you wanted. So planning in advance is going to get rid of all that frustration that you probably feel when you look at a makeup artist's work and it's not quite what you envisioned, or when the styling doesn't match up what you wanted. All of This planning eliminates that confusion and that clash of ideas. It's also the planning process and the planning of these kinds of shoots that leads to booking clients. I talk about that all the time. If you want to get paid work as a fashion photographer, you do need to show clients what you can do for them and demonstrate that you can achieve a certain result. And if you don't do that, the dog left. If you don't do that intentionally, they're never going to be able to see your potential. So you need to show clients what you can do for them very, very obviously. So create the work that you want to get booked for. And you do that by planning and thinking in advance, what do I want? How do I get that? Etc. And then finally, why you want to be planning shoots in advance is ultimately is going to save you a lot of time on the day and a lot of money. So without further ado, let's jump in step by step. I have a ton of notes on my iPad on every single thing you need to do when you are planning a shoot so that you never again wonder, how do I do this? This is your guide right here. In depth, everything you need to know. So step number 1, obviously, when you're planning a shoot, you need to come up with an idea. Before you try and come up with one single idea, what I want you to do is sit down with a pen and paper, a notebook, however you like to brainstorm, and just brain dump all of your ideas onto one page in one place. It doesn't need to be pretty, it doesn't need to be clean. Just get every single thought you have about, I really want to create a shoot in a studio with golden hour lighting, or I really want to do a shoot amongst a rose garden. Like, I'm just thinking on top of my head what might be some shoot ideas, but get all that on paper in some way, shape or form. Get it out of your head and into a physical form. What I want to encourage you to do is not go looking for inspiration when you're in this brain dumping phase. It's really easy to think that in order to get your ideas for shoots, you need to look at external sources. What I really encourage you to do is look within yourself and get your ideas from inside you, because that is where the golden stuff is. There's a whole other topic around that and why it's so important to look inwards for your ideas, but try to avoid getting ideas for shoots by looking at magazines, by going on Pinterest, by scrolling Instagram. Go internal. Shut everything off. Like, put your phone away, close the laptop, maybe take yourself to a coffee shop where you're not distracted by your usual environment, and get ideas down. Give this time. Sometimes it can take a few days as well to get lots of ideas. I know that often I get ideas in random places. Like, it's really well known that we get our best ideas sometimes like in the shower or driving in the car or walking and thinking. I get a lot of my ideas when I'm walking, for example. So let the ideas come. Don't feel like it has to happen in one go, and give yourself time. What I also like to do is I create like a brain dump folder on my phone where when I do get random ideas, I just jot them down in this one place. And then I use my notes app on my phone. It's really not fancy. I just keep this one page on my notes app on my phone where I'm like, oh, idea, write it down. Because I can guarantee you that if I don't write it down, I will forget it. Okay, once you've got all of your ideas written down in one place and you're like, okay, cool, I know what I want to do, I am really drawn to this idea, the next thing we want to do is think a bit more strategically. We're building a portfolio that's going to get us hired, right? The way that you do that is to think about what the client you would love to work with needs to see. The way you do that is you look at maybe the top 5 brands you would love to work with and you analyze the imagery they use. And then you compare it to the kind of work that you have in your portfolio already. Every brand uses various different types of photography. Sometimes brands use multiple different styles of photography in one season. So you need to decide who you want to be as a photographer and the kind of work that you want to create. But you also need to think about, what do the brands I truly love need to see? Maybe you want to work in skincare and beauty work. you really need to target skincare. So you're probably going to be thinking, okay, I need to create more beauty shoot. If you want to work really in high fashion and you don't necessarily want to be working with fast fashion, you don't want to be looking at fast fashion brands and what they're doing or their shoots. You want to be looking at what the luxury brands are doing. Caveat. A lot of the fast fashion brands, like we're talking the H&Ms, the Zaras, they're actually shooting imagery that is very luxury fashion. There are other brands like, especially in the UK, we have like Boohoo and Shine and brands I don't like. They have a very different style. Doesn't matter what you want to do, but pay close attention to what style of imagery those brands need. There are some brands, for example, that really favor filmy looking imagery or imagery that's solely shot in a studio. Really study. Get clear on what the brands that you want to work for are needing from photographers. You'll probably find they need multiple things. So then you have to just decide, what do I want to be? What do I want to do? It's a balance. Like, there's no perfect formula here. It's just getting clarity on what they need from a photographer and to see in your portfolio. The general things that brands need to see are technical skill, can you actually take a photo, some kind of unique voice, like what makes you different to other photographers, why should they hire you over someone else, can you direct an interesting shot, and also just overall, do you understand the industry? This is something that comes with time and through studying, but there are like specific little things that happen in the fashion industry that don't necessarily happen in other industries, like model casting, for example. And we're going to get to model casting later. Model casting is very specific in the fashion industry. We don't necessarily work with girl next door pretty models all the time. Sometimes that is the case, but very specific brands will hire that more commercially normal, beautiful model. The models that high fashion brands tend to book have some kind of something different about them. It's not typical beauty. It's not girl next door beauty. And it's very hard to describe that, but the way that I like to talk about models and model casting is like the model needs to almost be like an art piece in themselves. They are art as well in the way that they look. So casting is really important for that reason. When you're looking for gaps in your portfolio and you're picking your idea from your brain dump area, just think to yourself, what would make me really happy to produce? Because we can't just work to please other people. We have to also self-fulfill in many ways. It needs to be fun for us to do this work because it's going to take a lot of energy, right? It's going to take a lot of our time. We need to enjoy the process. But also, what would attract the dream client? What would make me happy, but what would also meet their needs? And when you find that sort of perfect overlap, that's where the gorgeous, beautiful work comes from. It takes some time, but take the time to do it. Flesh out an idea that perfectly meets those two things, and you're golden. So once you've figured out your idea, which idea from your brain dump session you're going to do, which one is going to meet those two requirements of does it please me and does it please ideal clients, then you go onto the mood boarding phase. Mood boarding is so much more than just creating a pretty spread of images. It's so much deeper than that. You need to think about more than just an overall vibe. I always say to my students, when you're doing your mood board, create your general mood board. But then you need to take it a step further. You need to create a posing mood board, a lighting mood board, hair and makeup mood board, a prop mood board. Really break the mood boards down into all the aspects of the shoot. And don't just stick to Pinterest when you're making your mood board. Think outside the box as well. I think that Pinterest is great. I do use Pinterest. I love Pinterest, but it's very similar content. I see mood boards from students all the time, and I see the same images over and over and over again that are referenced. And I think that can lead to a lot of work looking quite similar. So what we want to do is look at other sources as well. One of my favorite new websites is called Cosmos. I'm going to link it in the description below because it's so good. It's like a new version of Pinterest. It's really, really handy. But then also, like, look at other things that are not fashion photography. Go to a gallery. Go on Instagram and search for new things you've never looked at before. Use Google search, like Google image search. You'd be surprised what you can find. I also love to ask my friends if they've ever seen anything that has this vibe, or if they have any books at home that they could like send me any inspiration from. Sometimes the ideas come from the weirdest places, and what you're trying to do is create a mood that you can then use to showcase your ideas to the people you're going to be working with, but also to condense your idea into something a bit more manageable. Sometimes our ideas are huge and we have far too many ideas. So this helps us to condense it down, make it cohesive, make it flow, make it work, and give us a bit of direction. The next thing you're going to do is your lighting plan. This is similar to a lighting mood board, and sometimes they can be two in one. You can have your general mood board, but then you make a lighting page in your plan that just has 3 or 4 images of the type of lighting that you want to achieve on that shoot. If you're sticking to natural light and you're shooting on location, your lighting plan could just be, I know that I want to use midday harsh sun, or I know that I want my images to feature golden hour light. Then take it a step further, like, are they going to be backlit? Is the model going to be in what we call open shade, where the sun is shining, big bright blue skies, but you're placing the model underneath the shade of a tree or the shade of a house? That is what we call open shade. Really think about the lighting that you want to achieve. Obviously, when you're shooting on location, the weather can be a factor. Maybe have 2 options, like, what will you do if you wake up on your shoot day and typically it's sunny but you've woken up to grey clouds? What are you going to do? What kind of lighting are you going to have? Can you bring in some artificial lighting if you need it? If you're shooting in a studio or in an interiors location, plan the lighting. Are you going to be sticking to like very natural looking window light where you are just going to add to the light you already have? Are you creating a more hard, very flashy looking setup? What is the lighting? Really think about all of it so that you go onto your shoot day knowing exactly what you're doing. And also, if you work with assistants, you can tell them, this is what I want my lighting to look like, and they can just go off and do it. So do you see how it all adds together and makes the shoot day just run so smoothly? The other thing that when you're planning your lighting you can do is think ahead about any equipment you might need. For example, I know that when I shoot in big studios, I often like a very diffused, soft key light, which just means it's a very soft, very flattering, kind of like what's happening in this room right now, a very soft, flattering light. And I do that by either bouncing lights into polyboards or diffusing it with diffusion sheets. So kind of like how this curtain in my room here is a soft fabric. If I do this, you can't really tell here, but if I had a light shining straight through here, this would be dumbing down the light a little bit. It would be softening it and it would make it more flattering on my skin. What do I need? Do I need a softbox? Do I need an umbrella? Plan your modifiers in advance as well so that when you get to shoot day, you already know what you need. This is really important when you get to a stage where you are hiring equipment for jobs, for example. When I first started out, I had never hired equipment before. So when I started to need to plan my lighting in advance, I did that because I realized I needed to hire equipment. And in order to know what to hire equipment-wise, I needed to plan my lighting. So doing all of this work is what's going to take you from feeling like an amateur to feeling like you are a top-level professional fashion photographer who could walk onto a really big set and own it and to know what to do. This is how you get there. And by the way, if you're watching this and you're like, I don't even know where to begin with fashion photography, with transitioning into fashion photography, with owning being a fashion photographer, I've got you, because I actually created a quiz, like an old school noughties magazine style quiz, which asks you questions and guides you through the process. And then at the end of it, you get a score on all the different areas of fashion photography that you need to be a master at. And it tells you where you are really strong and where you are maybe lacking a little bit of skill still. And then you get a full detailed PDF report specific to you, and it's tailored to tell you resources. It's all free on how I can help you further, podcast episodes I've done, and little tips and tricks on how you can improve in those specific areas. It takes literally 2 minutes to do, and I'll tell you whether you need to focus more on shoot planning or pitching, or maybe it's profitability and your money side of things. If you want to do the quiz, there's a link in the description box below. Just have a look there, sign up. Honestly, it takes 2 minutes. It's really fun to do. It's kind of like doing a BuzzFeed quiz. I loved it. Loved making it. I hope you enjoy doing it. Okay, so back to planning our shoot. The next thing we're going to do, and if you're watching this for the first time, you're like, oh my God, Olivia, there's so much work that goes into planning a shoot. Yes, this is why being a fashion photographer is not what everybody does, because it does have a lot of work involved in it. We're going to write a shot list. And this is not the same thing as planning a mood board or planning a lighting list. We are planning every single shot you are going to take, with a caveat. We are leaving some room for interpretation, some room for ideas on the spot. But you remember how at the beginning of the video I said we're going to help you avoid having those blank moments where you're like, oh my God, I don't know what to do now. The model's here and she's standing in front of me. They're standing in front of me. I don't know what to do. This is what stops that happening. I made my first real shot list about 5 years ago. And I did it because I was doing a shoot where I only had about 6 hours of daylight to get the shot done. It was also my very first really big Elle magazine shoot. I was shooting for Elle Croatia. It was in the middle of winter. We had very few hours of daylight. It was really cold. And I knew that I had a very limited amount of time to get my shots that I needed. So in order to make sure that I got everything done, I literally went to the location. I took photos of where I was going to be doing each shot. And I drew out on my iPad with my Apple Pen the stickman version of the pose that I was going to make the model hold. This changed my career because I have done this for every single shoot I've done ever since. And I don't necessarily always draw stickmen, but I know exactly what shots I want to achieve on the day. This means that I get the shot really quickly because I already know in my mind's eye what I need it to look like, what I need to ask the model to do, what the styling needs to be. Are we doing a beauty shot? Are we doing a full body look? It means the stylist knows what they're doing. It means the hair and makeup know what they're doing. It means that we know the order that we're going to do the shoots in, because I can then work out what order is going to make the most sense according to what we're doing. It just really helps to keep the shoot on track, especially if you're someone who overshoots or takes too long with a shoot, or you end up shooting for ages at the start of the day on like one shot and then you have to rush the rest. This will stop that happening. So what I want you to do, no matter what kind of shoot you're doing, whether you're in studio, on location, if you're going to be on location, if you can get to the location in advance, go there. Take photos. It can be on your iPhone. Doesn't have to be anything special. Think about every single shot you want to take. Where are you going to place that model? What are you going to do there? What are you going to ask them to do? What pose are they going to hold? And write it all down. Make the plan. If you're going to be in the studio, it might be more like, okay, we're going to do 2 full body shots. We're going to do 2 mid-crop shots. And we're going to do 1 really close up. And then we're going to do 1 even wider shot. I've made this up on the top of my head. What poses are you going to ask the model to do? Are you going to do 2 full body standing shots? Or are you going to do 1 full body standing shot and 1 full body sitting on the floor shot? Are you going to do 1 close up that's backlit and 1 close up that's more front lit? That is how you plan the shot list. So get really clear on what every single image is going to be, so that again, when you're on set, you have the plan. You're no longer having to think on the spot about, oh, I need to be doing this now, I need to be doing that now. What was I doing here? What was I doing there? Because you planned it all in advance. You're just doing the thing now. And it will make it so much more freeing and so much less stressful. And trust me, when you do shoots like this, the rest of the people around you are going to be like, this was so good. This was so easy. It went really fast. It was really stress-free. I promise, it will change your life. Okay, the next thing is planning the styling, the hair, and the makeup. Now, I know a lot of you might be thinking, but that's not my job. It's not technically your job to do any of it or have all the answers to everything, but it is your job, especially like I said at the beginning, because this is your shoot for your portfolio, to know kind of what you want. So for example, you have this overarching idea for the shoot, right? So you probably have an idea that you want all denim, or you want all dresses, or you know that you want every single outfit to feature some kind of the color red. I'm making things up, but that is stuff you need to tell the stylist, and you can't do that if you haven't thought about the styling. So you don't need to plan all the looks unless you are literally styling the shoot yourself, which I do and I don't recommend in certain situations. But if you are working with a stylist, or even you want to have someone help you with the styling, they need direction. So breaking down a few ideas of shots, one of my favorite websites to go to is just the Vogue website, and you can look at the recent runways. So useful. Just copy and paste some of the images, put them in, and be like, I want to aim for stuff like this. You won't necessarily get those exact looks. Sometimes you do, but if you don't, at least the stylist knows the kind of direction you're wanting to go in. Same with hair and makeup. If you know that you want a very natural looking makeup, you can show the hair and makeup what you want. If you want a rosy cheek, you can include an example of the kind of rosy cheek you like. It will help to make sure that, like I said at the beginning, the hair and makeup team know what you're after and don't go on a completely different tangent, and then you get to the day and you're like, it's awkward because they're doing something completely different than what I imagined, and you're not going to like the images as a result. It also makes sure to keep the whole shoot vision cohesive. This is how you create work that is really strong and is going to make sense as a cohesive piece, and is going to make sense in your portfolio. Next, we need to cast the model. Doing all this planning up front, you probably already have an idea in your head of the kind of model that you would love to have on this shoot. If you had just winged it, you might have cast a model and then just picked someone random, and then actually it didn't end up fitting. But because you've taken all this time to think about the end result, to think about what you're trying to achieve, the model is going to naturally slot into place and make so much more sense. You can go to model agencies, you can go cast in the street, whatever you need to do to find your model, but go with an intention of, okay, I know I want a model that has these specific features. Maybe you want someone who has lots of freckles. Maybe you know that you want a dark-skinned model. Maybe you know that you want a redhead. It doesn't really matter what you want, but the main thing is you know that you want them. In order to find models, I obviously always recommend working with agency models if you can, but if you live in an area of the world where there are not agency models, don't be afraid to go out and cast in person. Like, I used to do that so much when I was starting out. I lived in a very remote part of the UK. There was not any model agencies near me. I had to be creative, and I found models all the time. It's not easy to approach people in the street. I don't like doing it, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do. You can also scour Instagram. Anywhere in the world, there are models. There are people who want to be models. There are people who are working as models. It's just up to you as the visionary of the shoot to find the right person. Don't give up. Sometimes planning these shoots can take a while. When you have a very specific vision, you can't necessarily expect it to all come together in like a day of planning. It might take you a month or two to find and gather all the stuff you need, all the right people, all the right team, and that's okay. What's most important is you're staying true to the vision, you're thinking long term. We're not here to just like have overnight careers, because it's very unusual that happens, and we're thinking long term, like what do we want to achieve? And that is how you often find the right people for your shoot. And we're almost at the end here. The next thing you want to do is logistics. I know, boring, but essential. We need to think about the shoot date. When are you going to do it? Once you have an idea of everyone you want, coordinate with everyone you want to work with. Like, when is everyone available? That can take a little bit of back and forth. One thing I do if I have a large team and we're all trying to find a date where we can do the shoot is I make a WhatsApp group, or you can make an Instagram like group, whatever you want to use, and get everyone to put in all the dates that they are free on, and then try and find something that works together. You also want to think about the location. If you don't already know where you're shooting, maybe you're booking a studio, finding the studio, booking the studio, getting that all done. Working out your timeline. I go into so much more depth on timeline planning inside my online course, Perfect Portfolio, but planning your timeline is a game changer. In the same way that you've planned your shot list, that you've planned your lighting, that you've planned everything else, you want to go onto your shoot day with a clear outlined timeline of every single thing that's happening throughout the day. Like, when are you arriving? How long is it going to take you to prep your lighting? How long is that first shot going to take? Think about outfit change times. Do not forget that it takes time in between each look to get changed, to do touch up, things like that. Also include times for lunch breaks, include time for pack down. Those are all really important things, and a shoot day goes by way quicker than you think it's going to go. So planning the timeline in advance is going to save you so much stress and so much headache on the day, I promise. And then you need to find your team if you haven't already. I've kind of already alluded to this, but when you are planning a shoot for yourself, you need to know who you want to work with. So it might be that you need to spend some time reaching out to everyone, like I said, setting up the DM group or the WhatsApp group where you work out your timings. If you have never worked with a team before, I could do a whole other video on finding teams and finding a dream team, and let me know in the comments if you'd like me to. But Instagram is your best friend. Genuinely, I get asked all the time, how do I find my team? Instagram. I find everyone on Instagram. You can go and stalk other photographers that you either are like near you or who you admire and see who they're working with. If they're a really high caliber photographer and you're like just starting out and they're way ahead of you, it's probably more reasonable to think that they might not be the right person to reach out to immediately. It's not a impossibility by any means, but what I often recommend is that you reach out to like that amazing stylist you love and admire and ask them if they have an assistant you want to work with, or you could work with, because big makeup artists, big hairstylists, big stylists almost always have assistants who are on the up and who are learning from them and who want to do shoots. So reach out to those people. They're your best bet. And then finally, the last thing you need to do, and this is really important, once you have everything together, once you know the date, you've done the timeline, you've got the team on board, you've got your model booked, about a week before the shoot, a lot of this tends to happen very last minute, but I am very organized and I like to pride myself on that. Make your call sheet. If you don't know what a call sheet is kind of like industry language for a one sheet piece of paper, sometimes two sheets of paper, that outline every single key piece of information that everybody on the team needs to have ahead of the shoot. So it tends to include things like the call time. So what time does everyone need to arrive? The location address, the key contact information of everyone on the team. I don't necessarily always put every single person's contact information on the call sheet. I generally just put my contact information, anyone who's really high level of the shoot, like maybe they've been involved in the planning process, if you have a producer on the shoot, or if you have an art director, or if you have anyone else that's like monumental, their contact information goes on there. It's just so that if anyone is having trouble on the morning of, they can call someone to tell them they're going to be 15 minutes late, or they can say like, I can't find the studio, things like that. Also, I like to include on the call sheet the timeline so that everyone knows roughly what the timeline of the day is going to be. I also, as a personal touch, like to add in the mood board of the shoot so that everyone can see what the mood board is going to look like, and this is the overall mood board. And that's kind of it. It's a very simple document. It doesn't need to be something you think heavily about or spend loads and loads of hours on, but it is important to get everything on there so that all the information that everyone would need is on that call sheet. And that is it. That is everything you need to know about how to plan a really high level photo shoot and succeed in 2025 as a fashion photographer. This is honestly how you go from being a more hobbyist fashion photographer, someone who's maybe shooting a bit of fashion on the side but not really getting paid to do it, to being pro. This is the stuff you need to be doing. I'm just going to run through quickly the steps again. So the first thing you need to do is brain dump all your ideas, get your shoot ideas out of your head, identify any gaps in your portfolio so that you can be intentionally shooting and gearing yourself up towards working with brands you want to work with. Make your mood boards, not just the one, make the many mood boards. Create a lighting plan. We talked about that in depth. Get a lighting plan together. You need to write your shot list and create your shot list. You need to plan the hair, the styling, and the makeup. Really important. You need to cast the right model, sort out all the logistics, and then create your call sheet. I would love to invite you to try and use this structure for the next personal shoot you plan and just see if it makes a difference. Does it make the day less stressful? Does it make everything come together easier? Does it make it easier to get more team members on board? Does it make it easier for you to get your idea out of your head and into reality? If you found this helpful, I would love you to let me know in the comments. If you have a friend who you think would benefit from this, please share it their way. And also tell me about how your shoots go. I want to know how you used this video and you brought your shoot to life. Send me the shoot. I want to see it. Send me a DM on Instagram. It's at Olivia Bossert Education. I love to see what you're doing. And then don't forget to subscribe. I will see you in the next one.